Starting. All right. Give it a second. Now, where is that? Share with everyone for somebody else who came up with big letters. Let's try the tool, not cameraman. The tools underneath. Interesting that things should pick up. How about settings? Nope, that's all good. Can you hit the dot dot dot?
Down here?
Over here, please. Nope. All right. Close that. That's all good. There must be share. How about did we already do those settings?
Yep.
Yeah, we did. Okay. That was all working. So where is the share everyone? What about people class? Nope. Close it. Yeah, he has a clip closed. I'm sorry. Everyone's display seems to be different. On the previous display, it was a huge green button that jumped up in huge letters. So
No idea.
May I try for 1 second? Oh, wow. That's my face on a big screen, isn't it? How wonderful.
You're fighting that.
Google Hangouts figured out live broadcasting with it. It's never easy.
Yay, stickers.
Technology doesn't work. Distract people with stickers. No attention to technology. Stickers.
Well, I'm going to do what we all do. Where is share? Nope. Not going to help.
Stickers. We're getting the audio figured out. This is not part of the actual presentation.
Oh, please no.
It could be.
No, nope.
Maybe it
That's
should
fine.
be.
No, we're good. We're good.
I had no AV helping here, so
Is it live right now?
It is live, but we're not sharing with everybody.
testing 1, 2. Is that good? That's good. Okay.
Well, in truth, I don't see the button, so I guess we're.
I don't even know how, because I just don't want a video of my face. That would be weird. That would be really weird.
Well, you go back to your whatever slides you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Should just,
Oh, there you go.
and then that is presenting.
Then we left that's working.
Okay. I'm not going to touch the lights because last time I did that, it went completely dark in here, and it was scary. This place is scary. Hey, everybody, how you doing? That was an awesome keynote, right? Well, welcome to this presentation. I can't guarantee it will be nearly as good as Kelly's because that was awesome, but you came in this room anyway, so now you're stuck here. I'm Dwayne. I work at a place called Pantheon. Who here has ever heard of or used Pantheon? For those of you who haven't, we are an awesome website management platform where we do elastic hosting for any size use case and web development tools for teams, which means we help teams figure out workflows. And if you want to connect your composer-based workflow up through Circle CI, these slides are not presenting correctly. I'm just realizing that now. We'll make do. Wow, yeah. Try this. And that's not presenting well either. Try it. Unplugging and plugging back in. That's what IT would tell me to do if I called, right? Try rebooting the machine. Power cycle it. There we go. There we go. Hooray, success. But I'm not here to talk about Pantheon. I'm here to talk about myself endlessly. So this slide is most of the presentation. But I've been working in marketing and sales since 2005 in open source. Started in the Java middleware space, a company called Terracotta. I love improv. I love webcomics and comic books. And I love karaoke a lot. There are a lot of karaoke places in Boston. So join me tonight. I forget the name of the place. I tweeted it earlier. And they have karaoke like 3 nights a week. So 9 o'clock. Let's go sing some karaoke, Drupalers. Anything else you want to know about me in the entire world, you can either find on Twitter, which is where I live, or over at my website, mcdwayne.com, which don't tell anyone is a WordPress website because it's a blog, and WordPress is actually good at that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about something else, but I want to know who's in the room. I always like to know who I'm talking at. So since you've all been sitting down, you've all been not interacting, I'm going to ask you to tell me your name. So like 1, 2, 3. Mike, that was a great job. Everybody else, I'm going to give you another chance. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And where do you work? And what city are you from originally? Boston. And where are you living these days? Boston. A lot of people didn't move. That's cool. And show of hands, who here designs websites for a living? Wow, that's a lot. Anybody here do development work and never touches design? Wow. I love designers and design conferences because you guys know how to go out and paint the town FF0000. Anybody here? So I call this talk Everything Louder Than Everything Else because I'm a Motorhead fan. And yes, I do realize there is a Meatloaf song, Everything Louder Than Everything Else, but I do not like Meatloaf, so that's the last we'll mention of him the rest of the day. But if you've ever seen Motorhead live, they are loud. They are insanely loud. They're giant stacks of speakers. I wore earplugs when I saw them at the Warfield in San Francisco, and my ears still rang afterward for 2 days. They were so loud. And they're famous for this saying, like when they tell the sound guy how to balance it all out, everything louder than everything else. Just turn it all up. Make it as loud as you possibly can, and then some. As a sound guy, that's problematic because you can't realistically do that. That's impossible. You have to listen to a certain part. If the drum solo, your drums are probably going to be louder than everything else. If it's a guitar solo, the guitar is probably going to be louder than everything else. If it's a bass solo, you get it. There's only 3 pieces to the band. So it's not that hard. And Lemmy's voice. Magical Lemmy's voice. Miss him. Well, this isn't that much different than working with clients because you got a bunch of people in a room that say, my voice is the most important. No, my voice is the most important. Just do everything I want you to do, everything louder than everything else. So how do we deal with that? Because in reality, what we're actually trying to do is set up expectations and deliver results against those expectations that will make everyone happy. But along the way, stakeholders constantly put in little bits of input. So the original idea was like, let's make a yellow cake with a stripe across it and an eye. And you get a little bit of feedback here and there, and you end up with something like this. And nobody's going to be happy with that. And you get clients that are they're just not happy. So how do we know who to listen to in that cacophony? And I'm not talking about the simple sale. I'm not talking about you have one stakeholder. You have one person who owns a shoe shop, and they have all the power in making the decision, and no one else to consult. That's an easy one. Listen to them. Done. But if it's a committee, who here has ever done design or any project where there is a team of people that have to sign off on a thing? Yes, that's probably why you're in this room. And how do we know what they want? Well, I think it actually comes down pretty simply to a quote from one of my favorite people that ever wrote a book, or claimed he wrote a book, Zig Ziglar. It's figuring out what they want and delivering it to them, and then you can have everything you want, which is a happy customer, a paycheck, and no phone calls at 3 in the morning from chaotic customers. And this comes from good discovery. And not the Discovery Channel, but I really like their logo, and it was convenient to grab this off the internet. So what do I mean by discovery? So let me step way back in the way back. Who here has ever seen a project funnel that looks like this? Good. For the rest of you, we'll walk through it. So patience for those of you who just raised your hand. Maybe you haven't seen this particular version. Every project, every sale, which is really my background in sales, follows this process where first you get a big group of email addresses and names, and those are called your leads. Everyone in this room, you are a lead now. And then you have people that actually need what you're selling, and they can afford to buy it, and they have a timeline, and they have the authority to buy. That's called BANT, budget, authority, need, time frame. Those people are called qualified leads. And out of those people, you're going to have people that, you know what, I actually want to go forward with what you're trying to sell me. And then you deliver those people a proposal. And finally, you deliver on the proposals that get signed. How you get from one bucket to the next is this idea of qualification. I take a lead. Do you have these criteria, these minimum criteria that I need to continue the conversation? You do, great. From that qualified lead, let's spend some time in discovery. Let's figure out what you exactly want to do, what exactly I can provide, and do these goals align? Is everyone going to be happy at the end of the day? It's going to be a win-win when we walk out of this room. And to those people, that's who you bother writing a proposal for. Who here has ever written a proposal way too early in the process? Yeah, we've all been there. Kicking proposals out after the first phone call is a terrible idea. It's a waste of everyone's time and resources. And hopefully at the end of the day, they'll be happy and funnel back up to the top and become a lead again, a qualified lead. So discovery works by talking to people. And that's what we're really going to spend the rest of, I think, about a half hour left in this room together. Talking to everyone, both as the entire group and individually. The best advice I ever got in my entire life comes from a guy named Cameron Purdy. Well, one of the best pieces of advice, at least around consulting and sales, from a guy named Cameron Purdy, who is the VP in Oracle that's in charge of their Coherence product, which is a Java middleware product. And he started his life as a consultant. And he said, the secret of consultancy is you go talk to everyone as a group once. Then you talk to every individual person and ask them exactly how they would solve the problem. And you write it all down. Then you go back in front of the group and tell them exactly what everyone told you in private. And they will cut you a giant check every time. And that stuck with me. And maybe that's a little slimy of an idea. As a consultant, I'm not a consultant. So I started applying that. I'm saying, all right, if there are 10 people involved in this decision, first I need to make sure that I'm on a conference call and we are clear. This is the mission. This is what you guys are talking to me about in the first place. And then I'm going to spend the time to go chase down each individual and have a conversation with them. I'm going to find out, why do they want to do this project? What's it personally at stake for them? Do they actually care? If you wait till later in the process where you've delivered the proposal and you start trying to ask these questions, it's too late. Way too late. But if you start after the initial phone call and 2 hours later, and Bob in accounting gets a call, it's like, hey, you know, I had a couple questions, follow up with you. He's just going to tell you because he's not expecting it. He's not guarded. It's not there. Oh, there's a piece of paper with a number in front of me. It's a negotiation now. It is it's a conversation you're having. So how do we go about this process? What is the actual process of discovery? That's what Einstein's doing here. He's saying question everything. I'm going a little faster than I thought I would than I practiced this, so I might end a little bit earlier today and go for Q&A. So here are the 20 questions you should write down right now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Point of the slide is that there are any number of awesome, great questions to ask, but they're going to be dependent on the project. They're going to be dependent on what you need to know for that particular thing. So you will read a lot of books out there. You'll probably listen to a lot of gurus in the world that will say, well, here are the magical few questions that you ask and you'll always get what you want. And I think that's crap. You need to step back and say, well, what are we really trying to do here? So let's just talk about how to go about that discovery process a little more generally. I can give some anecdotes of things I have done throughout the years. But the secret to all of this really comes down to this one point, if you walk out of the room with just this in your head, I think I'll have succeeded today. Every question you ask in the discovery process is open-ended. And there's only 6 ways to start an open-ended question. Does anyone want to guess what those are? Who said that? Say it louder.
So what, when, where, how, why?
Exactly. If you're asking a question in discovery that doesn't start with one of these words, you're not really in discovery. You are in, I'm trying to paint a picture of what I think should be going on, and I want you to conform to my reality. And that is not how things work. So, are you the person that's going to sign off on this? No. Well, now what do? You have to go back and ask a follow-up question. You have to ask the other question anyway. Who signs off on this eventually? So I call Bob in accounting. I don't know why I'm picking on Bob in accounting so much today. Makes me mad, I guess.
One of the Bobs.
What?
One of the Bobs.
One of the Bobs. You call one of the Bobs. And he says, no, you know what? I don't sign off on this. I'm just in the room. Well, you know, when he raised an objection later, it's like, this element is just terrible, and I want the background color to be green because I like green. You know, I don't need to listen to your voice. I don't need to make you louder than anyone else in the room. You're not the stakeholder who actually pulls the trigger on this thing. But on the other hand, he picks up the phone and says, yeah, you know, it's my decision, but I got to get everybody else involved. When you raise that objection later, you're probably going to listen to them a little bit more when you're going through that negotiation and the procurement process. Now, that's a very simple one. That is a very, very, very simple one. I'll get to the deeper point on that later, but asking people very pointed questions like, do you want the pictures on the left of the page or the right of the page? And in their head, they're like, yeah, images should be dead center of every page. They're just going to be mad. Like, this designer doesn't know what they're doing because they didn't ask me what I thought. They gave me a multiple choice test and I wanted an essay. So ask open-ended questions. They'll get you a lot farther. They'll spurn conversation and they won't put you into a box where maybe they won't have a good time. Of all of those 6 questions, ways to start a conversation or ask those open-ended questions, I think why is the most important. I didn't start this presentation with the why, and thinking back on it, I probably should have. Like, why am I talking about this? But the why tell you if they care. Why are you doing this? This is called Janet in Human Resources this time. Why is this important to you, Janet? And if she just flat out says it's not, well, then that's pretty simple. We don't really need to worry about her in the mix of turning the volume up on the conversation, balancing out, sound balancing that conversation. What if she says, because I need my kid to go to college, and I'm not sure we can afford it if we don't get this project done. Wow, there's a personal stake there. There is something she's gonna fight for. You might have just found your champion. Now, no one's gonna say that on the first call, ever. They'll probably say something like, oh, we need to be more efficient. We need to, my department really needs to see a little bit better performance in this area. We're hoping for 10% more leads. They're gonna give you some general answer. So dig in. It's not, these slides are backwards. It's not hard to ask why again and really dig in. Be prepared to make it uncomfortable. Say, like, why do you really care? It's like, oh, we need 10% more leads. But why is that important? I don't, just play dumb here. I don't understand why that's important. Oh, because our business needs 10% more leads. Like, no, but why is that important? Because we're not doing well. But well, why is that important? Because I'm going to lose my job if this doesn't work. As soon as it's personal, as soon as you think they're thinking about it at night in bed, you know what they're really thinking. You know why they're actually invested in if that's important to them or not. So keep asking why until you get a personal answer. It might not be there. There might not be a reason. There might be a point where they say, because that's what Bob in accounting told me was important. Well, who do you know to listen to when that procurement process starts and they start raising all the objections? Yeah, Bob, because he's the one that everyone's defaulting to on this project. That's why we called him first. In discovery, it's not discovery if you're talking. It's only discovery if you're listening. So all of the questions and why they're open-ended questions is to get people to start talking. Because if I say, do you like this chair? You can say yes or no. I say, what about this chair would appeal to you? What is it? Like, what are the qualities of this chair? Well, I don't know. It's plastic. It doesn't weigh too much. It actually does. It weighs more than you think it does. I wasn't expecting that. But as soon as they start talking, people love talking. And they love talking about ideas. And they love talking about themselves. So asking people, again, why is this personally important to you? How have you dealt with other designers in the past in these things? What other projects have you worked on with this team that you're signing off on this project with now? Start them telling the stories. They will tell you what's important. They absolutely will. They might not come out and say, this is the most important part of this whole project, and here is what's personally at stake. They're not going to come right out and say that, but you can coax it out of them. You can have that conversation. Which means you're not going to talk about yourself. As soon as you start saying, well, I can solve that, now you've gone past discovery. Now you are in proposal stage. As soon as you open your mouth to say, I know what to do, or I've solved that before, any I statements, you have shut down discovery. And there's nothing that says you can't go back to discovery, but it is really hard to go back in a process. It's easier to start the entire process over than it is to go a step back. I was trained in Sandler Institute. I don't know if anybody here familiar with Sandler. So there's a guy, Sandler, his first name's escaping me right now. Don't know why. What? All right, somebody thought I said it. But he has the submarine model. This is where I get my idea from funnel from. And a submarine model is establish rapport, and then you seal off that compartment, and you move on to the next step of the process, where you do qualification. And once you've got qualified, you seal it off. But once they're qualified, they're qualified. You don't go back and ask a qualifying question in discovery. That doesn't make any sense because you already did it. The first two steps, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. But once you get to discovery, it matters. Because once you go back and try to get that answer that you should have gotten the first time through, the first round of discovery, and discovery can last weeks. It can last hours and hours and hours on phone. But as soon as you're done with it, you're done with it. You're not gonna go back and discover something again. Because now you're in procurement and everything's gonna be a negotiation from the moment you say, I can do this. Nothing wrong with saying, I don't wanna do this, or I don't think I can do this for you. Nothing wrong with that. But that's what discovery is for, to get to that point where you're comfortable that you can go do it or not. But as soon as you say I or me, it's over. You got to set up expectations for what is about to happen next in the conversation. So I know I just said never use I statements, but if you're starting the conversation like, hey, I'm calling you today, Bob or Janet, or let's pick up something, Marcy. Let's pick on Marcy. Hey, Marcy, I'm calling you today because I had just some general questions about this project, and I wasn't quite clear on your role in all of this. And by the end of this call, if you have 12, 20 minutes to give to me right now, I want to have these 6 questions answered, and I want to have a better sense of just the overall project. Oh, okay. I can give you 15 minutes for that right now. Versus, hey, how you doing? And just launch into questions. Because how long is that conversation going to go on for? I have other things to do. But you haven't set up the expectation. That's one example. I like this guy. I Googled guides, people pointing directions, and this guy came up 3 separate times. These are 3 separate Google image results. Not from the same website, but this is from Google image. Down the page, like, I like this guy. For some reason, their SEO is weird. Because he's saying, okay, we're going to go down here, and then you walk down there. And now we're going to go this way. And you walk over that way. And now we're going to go over this way. And you walk over that way. There's no surprise. He's not, oh, we're going to go over to the courthouse and then just start walking, because where the heck's the courthouse in this town? I have no idea. Oh, we're going to go out on the end of the street. And you walk on the end of the street. People don't like giant surprises. People like little surprises. They like good surprises. People hate being shocked, though. They don't. There's a nervous anticipation people have when you say, I just have a handful of questions versus I have 6 questions. Say, I want to talk to you for a few minutes. How long is a few minutes? Versus, I want to talk to you for 15 minutes. That's all I got calendared. If we can't do it right now, let's calendar it for tomorrow. Because, okay, I can time box that. And they might talk longer, but if you say, this is specifically what we're going to do, and letting them know why you're asking the question, not a terrible idea. How do you like, I'm not a designer, so forgive me. Do you like captions to the left or the right of it? Or where do you like captions on a page? And they might be like, why are you asking me that? I am just one person on this committee. I'm like, well, I'm just trying to get a sense for if I gave a wireframe, do you have objections to having captions on the right side? Oh, okay. Oh, I totally get that now. Let people know what to expect and explain yourself along the way. Point them down the road. Say, this is what we're actually trying to accomplish. I think this is a super important one. I believe in freedoms a lot. That's why I work in free and open internet, free and open source solutions, software. Give them freedom. Let them know that, hey, you can say, I don't know, or not answer a question at any point, and that's okay. You might circle back to it later, but you're free to say that. And if they say, I don't know, or I don't care, well, guess what? You pretty much have solved that original thing you're going here with is, do you care about what their opinion is when procurement starts? Because if they didn't care in discovery, they're probably not going to care later down the road. They're going to be part of that, like, yeah, check the box. Let them know that, hey, this is a one-on-one call with you and me. This is kind of off the record. Nothing's off the record. But let them know, like, I am never going to take what we said here and throw it in your face. You're never going to get reproached from saying, just tell me what you think. You're not asking deep personal questions like, what do you really think of Bob? Maybe you are. I don't know. We don't like that guy. That's all we know. But you're asking them questions related to the job, the project, them. Let them know that there's no wrong answers. So there's no downside to them just speaking freely and openly. And the last one I think is super important. I almost made it its own slide. Give them the freedom to dream. Like, okay, Marcy, if you were in charge, how would this go down? How does this project look in 6 months? A year from now, how has your job changed because this project got done? Dream big. Because they might not give you any new information with that. They might give you the exact same answer they would have given. They might say, you know what? No one's asked me that. You know what I'd really like? I would really like this and this, and throw out good ideas. And again, write them down. Because when you go back in front of everyone and you say that idea that Marcy thought up, you're going to look like a genius. And everybody's going to be like, wow, why didn't we think of that? And Marcy's going to be like, hey, that was my idea the whole time. Everyone will look good at the end. So give them the freedom to dream really big. Be transparent with literally everything because of this. You can't build trust in the dark. You can trust people in the dark, but it is really hard to build that trust. When the lights go out, I'm pretty sure I know where everyone sits, but that's only because the lights are on right now. Let people know why you're doing what you're doing. This goes back to leading people along the way. But tell people like, hey, I just talked to Bob. I just talked to Marcy. I just talked to Janet. You're a third person I called because you were sitting 4th in the row on the left-hand side of the conference room when we did that initial call. That's the only reason I'm calling you 4th. Or, hey, you seem to have a lot of opinions in that meeting, and I thought I'd call you first. Or I'm asking this question because I'm trying to get to this answer. Or I'm doing this because of that. The more clear you are in the process up front with anyone on these one-on-ones and in the group, larger group, the better everyone's going to look. Everyone's going to feel. So when that proposal comes across the board, they're going to know, okay, I know how he got to this. I know how she got to this. I know how this proposal arrived in my hand. The whole time, they were asking questions that would eventually lead to this. No surprises, no pulled punches. At the end of discovery, you want to have every question answered by each of the stakeholders and the group as a whole. This means you might need to do a second conference call, third conference call, fourth conference call with everybody before you deliver a proposal. Your clients are not going to want to hear that. I'll tell you that right now. As a sales guy, this was a hard lesson to learn. But the largest deals I ever closed required multiple conference calls with stakeholders. People want to pick up the phone and say, hey, give me a price for a thing. And they want the price and they say yay or nay based on a number and hang up the phone. That's how clients want transactional deals to go. But we're not dealing with transactional business. We're not selling widgets at Kmart or Walmart or wherever. We are delivering an idea that's in someone's head through the magic of PHP and JavaScript and CSS onto an end client's device. There's a magic to that. There is a process and some serious consideration that you need to go through to get there. So having your questions that you need answered to get that proposal in front of them, you get all the information before you know how they're going to react to that proposal, requires time and patience. And if they won't get back on the phone with you for a second round of discovery, are they going to get back on the phone with you when a disaster strikes or your contract didn't get paid? Maybe discovery, maybe you don't. But that's not the real stakes. That's not the giant project. If they're not willing to commit and put skin in the game earlier on, yeah, they're probably not going to later. It's a good sign of flakiness. Have a checklist of things for your discovery process. This is kind of out of order. This is the first time I've given this talk, by the way, so I'm a little scattered on it. So thank you for your patience. But have a checklist. I fly a lot. I've been on 15 flights this year so far, and I got 10 more planned just till October. I like the fact that the pilots have a checklist. I like the fact that the flight attendants have a checklist, that you can see them checking down as the thing takes off and they arm all doors for all call. It comforts me that, there's a process to this. There's a thing to do. So again, going back to transparency, if you can tell your client one-on-one, it's like, hey, where are you going with this? Why are you calling me? It's like, oh, I have this process I go through. It's standard. All my last clients really loved the fact that I had this. I got a set of questions that I need answered personally. Now, again, here are 20 that I pulled off the internet randomly when I looked for 20 project management questions. And this is literally the first thing that came up. But you should have some general questions that you need answered for your business personally and for yourself personally. And you can check that off, and there's a process to it. Doing this methodically, transparently, openly, and honestly really is the difference between, at the end of the day, a proposal where people are like, how on earth could you think you have any right to charge me that? Who do you think you are? And people saying, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Where do I sign? I'm not saying every deal will be as good as that based on discovery. Everything can go off the rail at any moment. I had a deal where I did everything right. I had done discovery call after discovery call, and we got to the signing agreement, and it was on a Skype call back in the day. It was like 2006. And the guy looks me in the eye over Skype and says, can't do it. We just got acquired. Like, oh man, that was a huge deal. But they came back later. They came back and we get something different with those people. That was a long time ago. So it's not always going to go right, but I didn't send a proposal over and them get angry at me and never talk to me again. I was transparent and honest with them the whole way through. I asked questions of everyone on that team multiple times. We had 3 conference calls with all the stakeholders. At the end of the day, they were very happy. Just they couldn't do it. They couldn't pull the trigger for circumstances out of their control. Anyway, I'm Dwayne, work at Pantheon. All my slides, except for this presentation, which I just finished this morning, are over at mcdwayne.com. You can find me on Twitter. In fact, if everybody tweets at me, that would be awesome. I love Twitter. I'm MC Dwayne. And with the 10 minutes or so we got left, I'll open the floor for questions. Right there.
How do you handle the client where they refuse to go one-on-one? I've had clients where occasionally you try and set the meeting with one person, 90 people show up. Like, it's terrifying. I'm confused how they even have that much time in their day, but I've had that happen on multiple clients, especially ones where they're in businesses where they really like to kind of cover their ass. How do you recommend we should handle that?
There's a lot of approaches to that. My personal favorite approach to this, and something that my colleagues do right now, there's a sales trainer that I love, Jay Hoffman. He's MJ Hoffman. He's from Boston, but he taught me this trick. You give them your cell phone number and say, hey, I want us to have a clear line of communication here. Here's my cell phone number. I want you to feel free to call me at any time, day or night, and have this conversation. Would you mind giving me yours? And if they balk at that, you know you don't have enough trust in that relationship yet for them to move forward. But if they say, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, here's mine. Call them on their cell phone. Call them at an unexpected time. If they will only pick up the phone if there's a meeting like me, I do not sit at my desk ever. You can only get a hold of me by email, and then I will get on the phone with you. And they pull that trick. Maybe that's not a client you need. Maybe you're not in the position to say yes or no to clients like that.
I'm not.
Yes. And some people are just jerks. That's the end of the day. Some people are just going to do that. There are a lot of tricks to that, but catch them off guard. Ask colleagues to ask them questions. If you need that as data points from them and you need to have that conversation, if they're in the same city, invite them to lunch. Try a different medium. Have you ever tried DMing someone on Twitter that wasn't getting back to you? I answer every DM on Twitter. If anyone ever calls me over Facebook, I answer because I'm like so tickled that people are using the call function on Facebook Messenger. So just try every different avenues. If the path you're going is not working, try a different path. And if they still won't pick up the phone, they're not gonna pick up the phone. Well, it doesn't work for everybody. Okay.
How do you handle kind of the negative stakeholder, like the one who is unfortunately the lead decision maker, but kind of has that negative approach to marketing as a whole, doesn't see why they're spending their budget on it, things like that?
Yep, that goes back to why. Cornering them with why. Like, so why are we even doing this project? And if they don't have an answer for that, there's a good chance you're not getting paid anyway.
Wow, he's good. We call this client pending litigation. That's her name.
Okay. Seriously, get them to a point, because if they can't answer the question of why with a personal reason that you think they're honestly thinking at the end of the day, if this is just some business decision to get a 1% increase on a margin and they don't care, they don't care. You have to keep asking why until they get frustrated. And it sounds like counterintuitive because you're trying to build this trust and this rapport, but just like, I don't understand. Like, we're here doing this, but why this? And eventually every human being will get frustrated and just blurt out the truth. That's the best advice I have on that one. Again, back to my previous statement, some people just jerks. I can't help it. Yes.
Do you try to make it really clear when you're working with people that when you've identified who the kind of the most important decision maker is, or is it enough for you to just kind of identify the power dynamic and relate to that?
It completely depends. If it is a very large group, I'm never gonna bring it up. I'm gonna default to the person who I have found out is the person I should have listened to and the loudest. If it's a small team, like there's 6 people on a conference call and everyone's chattering at once, just ask the person you think's the most power in the room what they think, just directly. Say, Janet, what are your opinions on the question that Bob just asked?
Would you ever come out and be like, all right, we're sitting down, we're going to talk about this. Our first step is for me to know who makes the final decision, and then that's how we need to structure this conversation. If you want something to go into this project, you need to convince the decider, and you need to nominate the
Okay. No.
No. Okay.
So be transparent as you can, and if they ask, God, who actually makes the decision inside this committee, say, oh, okay, you got it. But they're pretty clear that's what you're doing with these conversations. It's It's pretty obvious. And everybody knows that no matter how big the committee is, unless they're doing a blind vote, there are people that have more power in that room than other people. It's your job to figure out in the sales and project management who that person is and how to listen to them. So, okay.
You talked about not trust yet.
I'm sorry?
You talked about not trust yet.
Not trust yet.
So then that you said then they don't trust you yet. Ways in which to establish trust, like in the dark, do it in the light first. So when you're pretty sure, and in most cases, a group of people don't trust you initially, as they shouldn't, what are some of the tactics that you use to get people to trust you? How do you build the trust?
That goes back to a very early part of the entire sales process, referring back to Sandler, actually, that's rapport. If someone's like, nobody trusts anyone out of the gate, at least they shouldn't. But the fact that you're gone through a qualification process and they've even gotten that far means they're qualifying you as well. They have looked at your portfolio, they have looked at other work, and they don't trust you yet, but they trust your work and record enough that it's started. Furthering that trust, there's a lot of routes to that. A lot of it is just working, improving integrity. Very small steps. Say, hey, I'm going to get this, I'm going to send the follow-up notes from this conversation in the next 2 hours. An hour and a half later, it's in their email box. Yep. And the next time you meet, like, hey, we only have 15 minutes. And in the 15-minute mark, say, hey, I have to go. I'm sorry, but I said 15 minutes. I meant 15 minutes. Click. Doing the small things. There's an old saying. I don't know who said it, but it comes from Bushido culture. In matters of in large important matters, take great levity. In matters of small detail, be of utmost seriousness. The little things matter and they notice, and that's integrity, like how you're behaving on the little things. And that builds that trust, that builds that rapport. That takes time, that takes a lot of effort. Sometimes it's effortless. Sometimes you just meet somebody and you like each other and you'll do business together for years. And sometimes it's like, yeah, it's 2 years of you telling me no, but yeah, you know what? I really appreciate everything I've ever seen you do. Everyone else likes working with you. I'll give you a chance. Every person's different. But be very diligent in the small things, and that will prove you in the bigger things. Hopefully that answers your question.
How do you handle the personality changes that happen with multiple stakeholders? Example, I got this guy, sweetest human ever, one-on-one. You get him around his other stakeholder, it's like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And as a result, anything he says one-on-one, even if it's a great idea, you actually can't bring it up later because he won't admit he was the one who said it. He won't say it's a good idea and just kind of gets into this whole thing.
There are power dynamic things happening in that situation that you have no control or no real insight into. And to dig into those is the job of a psychologist and not something you're ever going to see a dime for in your life with them. How you handle that situation, how I've handled that situation historically, is don't give them credit for it in the larger context. Say, you know what if we did this idea? And even if he doesn't support it there, his idea got out there, he knows he got out there, you brought it out there, and in the one-on-one, he's be like, oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you so much. And in public, probably not. I don't know anything about the situation to even hazard a guess on what that interpersonal dynamic is within his company. And again, we don't really need to know what it is. We just go around it as best you can. Any other questions? Oh, I forgot to do this thing. So if you ask a question, I'll give one to you since you helped me with the thing. So if you ask a question, I'll give you sunglasses. Who else has questions?
Wow, this is a great idea.
Who else?
Should have done that before.
I'm destroying university property. Hooray! One more destroy
Well, this will be remembered for
You guys want to share sunglasses?
had holes. And
All right. It is 3:15, which is supposed to be the end of time, but any other last question before we head out? Yes, sir.
All right, so what happens when you inherit a project halfway through and dealing with the wreckage?
Start over.
All right.
I'm dead serious. It's never too late to start a new discovery process.
But you already have like models built halfway through, the website's done,
It's
icons, all of that.
it's not an ideal answer. I realize this. It's not an ideal answer, I know, but this goes back to the sales funnel, which I won't. I should probably scroll back up to it. It goes back to the sales funnel idea. 45 slides. There it is. Once you're in proposal, you're in proposal. So you're doing the thing that they signed off on and delivering them that. If they come back and say, hey, we need 1,000 changes, like, that's not in the proposal. We need to do new scoping. New scoping means new discovery. And you start back at the top. If that's not the way your company will let you do it, do it the way your company says they handle that situation.
Often if you're inside the company, maybe changing teams, you're still kind of within the same scope, you know, so yeah, while the time has been invested, the resources spent, now you kind of have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a hard problem. Again, I'd never think it's too late to go back and start a brand new round of discovery. And nobody minds when you call up and say, hey, I'm the new guy. I didn't start this project with you, and I am trying to wrap my head around these details. People might get a little bit like, oh man, if you're like the 17th new guy they've seen on this project, they might get a little upset. But you'll actually get a lot more honest, quicker answers because of starting conversations that way with, hey, I'm new here. I don't understand what's going on. And people take pity on you. They're like, oh, well, it's not your fault you're new. Well, let me get you up to speed. Does that solve the problem? No. And I'll be honest with you, in design work, that is not something I know a terrible lot about. There's probably a lot of smaller facets of that I'm just not processing right now from your question. But that's the best advice I have. Like if it was a sales process and I walk in as a sales guy after proposals on the table, either I execute on the proposal that's on the table and push that contract through to the best of my ability, or I throw the contract completely away and we start completely over from scratch because I'm the new guy. But that's in the sales realm. I don't know in project management realm how that exactly would play out. All right, you're the last question now. But I'm out of sunglasses, or I got this pair of sunglasses, and that's.
How do you get over the hump of having to tell a key stakeholder no in the beginning? If it's something that, like for instance, I had a client before that they desperately wanted to use Drupal for something, but unfortunately due to regulations they had to use a different CMS. So he had to be told no on like something he really wanted up front, and from then on it was kind of lackluster about the process.
Nobody likes to hear no.
Right.
So actually I have another talk that I gave. I just retired it over in WordCamp Europe on improv lessons for development. And there's actually a piece of this. It's the idea of yes and. No is always a knee-jerk defensive, like I have to defend my idea that you've said no and prove that it was a good idea with merit no matter how terrible it was. Say yes. And to get to that end, we're going to have to scope it. And to get to that end, we're going to have to pass these regulations. And to get to that end, we're going to have to do 13 hours of paid discovery. Are you ready to sign that? At that point, he's going to say no, hopefully. Or he'll say yes, and you'll get a nice 13-hour discovery paycheck. Don't knee-jerk no, even no matter how terrible of an idea it is. Say yes, and here's the reality of this. Yes, and here is how we're going to get there. And it's a long path, and it's an arduous path. And are you ready to go in there with me? And if they are, do it. There's money at the end of that road. If the answer is no, now that you've said that, I see why you wanted to do it the other way. Then you got your original goal in mind. When you want to say no the worst, that's when you need to say yes and build a world out from there to let them see, like, here's the thought process of why I would say no, and you'll get there and lead them to no on their own. That's kind of tricky and hard to do, but when it's your first gut instinct to say no, not right off the bat, because they'll just put up their hands and it's like, all right, I got to fight you from here on out. Nobody likes to fight, except maybe Mike Tyson. All right, with that, I'll free you and get to something else.